Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
Be next. But then I felt like it was important, like I said, with the Wham radio hosts that I really respect. And they inspired me that in these times, maybe I should do a podcast. So I started the podcast, which then spawned 2 constitutionalist politics books based on the podcast. Since I'm doing a weekly show, those thoughts are already in my head. It's easy to put them in a book at the same time as you're putting them into a show, which then also led in May of 2024, I released podcasting quick start guide, how to become a podcaster.
Right.
You can start off fairly cheap, right? And then build, then put more money into it later. How to start off cheap, grow, invest more, get bigger. And then in June, this month, as we're recording, I'm not sure when we're airing, but June of 2024, Constitutionalist Politics 2, the second one of that, dropped. So I have 5 international books now, although, like I said, I hold 3-4 dozen copyrights.
That's cool. So the podcast, talk about that for a second. What was it that made you decide that you needed to start a podcast?
Well, like I said, several names of friends who do radio shows for Wham Radio out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, 1600 AM. You can go to whamradio.com, listen to their shows on Saturdays from the website anywhere in the country, of course. Now, I was thinking about what they're doing and if I had anything indeed that I could add, because I call in all the time. But I thought, well, and I've got a friend who said for years I should be on the radio. So I said, maybe it's time I put this loudmouth to use, right? I can do a show. And it goes back to like Reagan and Prager. Right? To set a new paradigm apart from the old paradigms, like Reagan, not left, right, but up, down, what uplifts the people and can take down the government a notch and take us back to we the people. Well, my thought on a Christian podcast was, I invented the term and trademark constitutionalist, based on our Judeo-Christian foundations of our nation. And what can we do as Christians together, rather than, as I recorded a clarification show the other day, and I said, my show is not a Catholic show, not a Presbyterian show, not a Methodist show, not a Lutheran show, not a whatever. Stop letting Satan divide us on some minor things to keep us arguing. What are those things as Christians, and Christians in tune with our Judeo-Christian foundation and our mainly Christian founders, who today they try to say weren't religious at all. It's like the other day that an appeal to heaven flag, the George Washington flag, all of a sudden, after decades of attacking Washington and Jefferson as supposedly not really being religious. That's a misnomer. So the appeal to heaven flag for decades didn't really mean anything. But now all of a sudden they flip the script and say, well, that's really a Christian theocracy symbol. We want a Christian theocracy. Well, no Christian I know wants that. Let's focus on the things Jesus said we can agree on and come together. He said to teach, to preach, not to dictate. We are not Islamofascists. We're not looking to push it on anyone, but it's no denying our original laws were based on biblical values. Thou shalt not murder innocents. Thou shalt not steal. You got a problem with those? You want it okay that anyone can wander into your house and take your stuff, or wander into your house and murder you just because they don't like the way you look or something? Like Penn of Penn and Teller, I go into in my book, my constitutional show and books. He's an avowed atheist, but he's not a Christian hater atheist like most atheists are. He says he's got no problem with the Bible and the Ten Commandments because he agrees it's just common sense. It's just being a good human. You don't murder him. He don't have a right to murder you. You don't have a right to his stuff, nor him yours. So I don't get this hang up other than just a vitriol for faith in general.
So I know a few atheists. I don't know a lot of them, but I know a few atheists. I don't know any that hate Christians. I know a few that don't agree with Judeo-Christian principles, right? And the way that we were raised and that kind of thing. I don't know any that hate Christians. Most of the atheists I know are tolerant, basically, I guess is the best way to put it.
Well, you run into a different brand than I do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, different. You
can't paint everybody.
Different paths are going to expose you to different things, right? Yeah.
Right.
So let's talk about.
You can't paint any group with a broad brush. But I was on an atheist show and I'm not going to give the name because I'm not going to promote him. But his whole shtick was luring Christians onto the show so he could attack the faith. And I was happy to go on and give back as much as he gave out. Because if you're solid in your faith, there's not a problem. That's like, again, any group, you can't paint any group with a broad brush. We are all individuals.
Yeah, and it's not just because you believe something or just because you vote a certain way or just because that doesn't make you like everybody else that believes like you do. So no, I agree with that completely. So let me ask you this. So your latest book is about podcasting, and basically it's an easy, quick and easy setup guide, right? So the question that I have for you, and then this is basically, we've learned from our listeners that the life stories that we're getting about our guests, our listeners are connecting with them about something. They might have been, their favorite subject in high school might have been math, just like yours. It might have been one of those things where they graduated from high school and went into trade school, whatever, right? There's something in there that they connect with, and they end up doing things that they've been putting off. And a bunch of them, and I'm talking a number, probably, a few dozen, right, have let us know that they've started podcasts inspired by life stories that they've heard on our podcast. So the question I have for you is, chances are pretty good that somebody's listening to this and they're considering starting a podcast. What are some of the really down and dirty, easy things that they can do to make things less expensive and easier for them, and they can get started right away?
Well, we're doing it right. Well, let me back up a notch. It's
Sure.
both. It's why I wrote both How to Write a Book and Get It Published,
Mhm.
Hints, Tips, and Techniques, and Podcasting Quick Start Guide, because I know there are people, indeed, likely in this audience, who have thought about one or other or both,
Yeah.
and they just don't quite know how to really start. And I can help them with that through
Yeah.
my books, because it's like you said, like I said, I've been inspired by the Wham guys.
Mhm.
And a friend of mine who said, you should be on the radio. So I finally, like I said, figured I'd put this loud mouth to use. But yeah, they're either intimidated or they just don't know. Or the other thing I like to say about How to Write a Book and Get It Published and Podcasting Quick Start Guide, if you're not even looking to do that, you're not interested in writing a book, or you're not interested in doing your own podcast, you can think of them as a tell-all
Mhm.
rather than a how-to, right? What did you potentially, definitely me, go through to get to the point of podcasting or writing a book? Like How to Write a Book and Get It Published, I joke, is a behind the scenes tell all, but I don't drop any Kardashian names in it, you know? So what does a podcaster go through, or what does an author go through to get a book out like Terror Strikes so that it's there for you to buy it? But as to an actual tip or trick that's in Podcasting Quick Start Guide that you could start off relatively easy, we're doing it now. We're talking, I hope I'm not giving away a secret of yours, but we're talking via Zoom.
Mhm.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Even my monologue shows, I record on Zoom,
Mhm.
because then I've got both an audio and a video recording
Right.
of what I've done. Then, of course, if you just want to dump it raw, you can, or buy editing software. Me being in IT, I had that already.
Mhm.
So, to join files together, edit them, take out all the ahs and the ums. Although I joke around on my Constitutionalist Politics show that I might rebrand it someday to be called At Any Rate, because now it's an ongoing joke that I do that all the time. At any rate, when I'm going to make a segue to something else. At any rate, and I said, you know what? That's not a bad name for a podcast.
Right. It's not a bad name for a podcast. There's podcasts out there that are, on second thought, right? That's the name of it, right?
Exactly.
Crazy. It's crazy. So
that's perfect. You take something every day. Like, I have discussions all the time, like, having the music background. We'll talk music and subject of, well, what artists do I like or not like? It's like, I am not a fan of who I call her jokingly, Lady Gag Me, instead of Gaga Gag Me. But Poker Face, absolutely brilliant song because of what we just alluded to. You take something that's been in the nomenclature for a long time, put a nice spin on it, and you've got greatness. Now, Taylor Swift, I'm not her demo either, but Shake It Off, other than the line she stole from Eric Church, who stole the line from an earlier 90s rap group, the player's going to play and the hater's going to hate. Other than that borrowed line, that is an absolutely brilliant song. Now, to make sure people don't think this is a sexist thing, I've never been a Bruce Springsteen fan either, but Glory Days, and I go into this in How to Write a Book and Get It Published. Glory Days is brilliant because why? Most people growing up played a sport of some kind. They have good memories of those, quote, unquote glory days. So I go into how to write a book and get it published, hints, tips, and techniques. Develop a sport or some kind of connection that makes your character it helps. I don't know. Yeah, you draw out mental blocks, and I'm having one now, but associates them with that character. It, makes them personable and believable and somebody they would have as a friend, unless of course you're writing a book with an evil antagonist, and you don't want them likable, obviously. But
Well, that's specifically why we do this podcast. We do this podcast so that people can get to know our guests, right? And people talk about this all the time with me. It's not about me, it's about you, right? And it's about our listener having an opportunity to hear your point of view and hear what you've accomplished in your life, how you did it, and more specifically, why you did it. Does that make sense? So it's one of those things where we're helping, I feel like, to expose for people the thought process that goes into why do you write a book called Terror Strikes? Why do you write a book called, how to write a book and get it published? How do why do you write a book about podcasting? You with me? So those types of things are the things that, and you decide to get into podcasting and you pick a name in particular for a reason, right? A lot of people that are listening to us are thinking about doing something, but they haven't done it. They haven't pulled the trigger. They haven't had that one thing that. Joseph, are you there?
Yep, I'm still here.
I apologize.
Must have had a hiccup on your end.
Yeah,
that's all
we're
right.
having an issue with our internet, and I thought I had it between you, me, and the gatepost. I thought I had it addressed over the weekend, but apparently I didn't. We're still recording. That's the good news. Let me get you back on.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
I'm not seeing,
I knew not to drop off.
I'm not seeing your video. I'm not seeing you on video.
No. All right, let me toggle it.
There we go. There you are. There you are.
All right.
Okay, so we're back on. Okay.
So
yeah, Annie, our editor, she'll take care of this. It's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, my feeling.
Happens. Yeah, I've heard a third recording in progress. Hopefully we haven't lost anything.
No, we're recording. So Annie, our editor will take care of all that. But what I was getting at was, everybody has a way that they go about doing something, right? The biggest thing is, why do they do it? Right. And one of the things that we found, and then we're over 200 episodes here. We're approaching 210 episodes, and we've been doing this just over 10 months. And what we're finding is it's more about the why than the how. If your why is just a burning desire, you'll figure out the how, right? And so that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. That's why we do what we do, because the more people hear our guests and the more they hear about how they're not willing to take no for an answer, and they're not willing to just stop. They're not willing to accept failure, I guess is the best way to put it, or accept setbacks and that kind of thing. They figure out a way around the wall. They figure out a way over the wall. They figure out a way through the wall, underneath the wall, whatever it takes. So that's the kind of thing that I love bringing out in people and showing our listeners so that they can see that there really are people out there that are so determined that they're going to write a book, write 2 books, write 3 books, write 4 books, start a podcast, do all the things that they're doing, right? That you're doing. And I want them to understand that if your why is big enough, if it's burning enough, if it's enough of a desire, you'll do it. You'll flat out do it. Flat out get it done.
Three things on that. First, do it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And like you said, if you've got a burning, if you think you're going to start a podcast or write a book to be the next J.K. Rowling and Stephen King, hey, I'm going to be a millionaire.
Right.
Don't do it. That's the wrong motivation.
Right.
If that happens, oh, that's great. That's
Right.
wonderful. That's bonus. But do not do it for that motivation. If that's
Right.
your motivation, it's the wrong motivation, and you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
Don't even bother.
I
But
agree with that.
the second thing is niche.
Mhm.
There's a market for anything. And I go into this in both the podcasting and the how to write a book. You know, there's a market for anything.
Mhm.
That then comes to the third thing, marketing and promotion, which I go into both of those books, right? It's how do you let people know something they would indeed be interested is out there for them to tune into or buy as a book. And then I guess the last thing is regarding marketing and promotion, right? I'm here to talk to people in large part to do what? Market and promote my books, right?
Mhm.
Because they can't know unless I tell them it's there. And like you alluded to a little, to let people know the person behind the object. Now, right, people will wander into Barnes and Noble.
Mhm.
Oh, that cover looks good. Pick it up. You got to have a good title.
Yeah.
I went back and forth with my publisher for 3 months before I knew it was going to be called Terror Strikes. But there's a million books called Terror Strikes. What is the subtitle?
Mhm.
That matters.
Mhm.
Coming soon to a city near you. We finally came on that. Soon had to be in there. It's like they're here, soon they'll strike.
Yeah.
Was one of them bantered about. But coming soon to a city near you makes the point that, hey, this isn't just a New York thing. 9/11.
Yeah.
There was a train derailed between Chicago and St. Louis that in my mind is still a terror attack that they still not telling you was.
Yeah.
It can happen anywhere, anytime, any place, because 9/11 is hard. Softer targets are easy.
Yeah.
So because wherever you are doesn't mean you're safe. So yeah, it took forever. And then the other thing is people may not have thought, well, a book about terrorism, I wouldn't be interested in that. But after maybe hearing me, they may say, oh, well, I kind of like him. I hope you do anyway. Right. I'm trying to be personable, obviously, so that you do like me. Right. And then they say, well, maybe I'll read it. But even beyond that, I wrote this down so I don't get it wrong. I haven't memorized it. Yes, it's about terrorism, but not a book about death, but life and living.
Gotcha.
It really kind of is a Christian theme, even though it's about terrorism. Life over death, hope over fear, faith over despair, love over hate, good over evil, politics, individualism over collectivism, freedom over tyranny, family and friends. So it's really terrorism ties all that together, but it's really about all those things. So if you're not into a book about terrorism, you don't have to be, because that's not really the bottom line in the book.
Right. I got you. So is there anything else that you're working on currently or for tomorrow?
Well, I've got, like I said, a ton of irons in the fire. In fact, in my Constitutionalist Politics book that just dropped in earlier June, in the back of that book, I have a area where I hint at a couple of working titles of things, like So Tired, Targeted, I forget the other ones even. I've got so many irons in the fire, and I don't know which will be next. And obviously, you've got to be careful if you've got a book in you, what you give away, so somebody doesn't beat you to market with it, right?
That's it. No, I agree. I totally agree. Well, listen, I
So
cannot thank you enough. I cannot thank you enough for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, Lipton. But every time you have Lipton tea, think the Litton Show, right?
There you go.
Name association.
Love it, buddy. I love it. Thanks again, Joseph.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's another thing. It's like we got to keep a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Even in my Terror Strikes book, there's a comic relief chapter to make that point. No matter how serious things get, we have got to keep a sense of humor, or we'll be in the fetal position in a corner, curled up, sucking on our thumb, crying all the time.
I got you, buddy. I appreciate you. Thanks again for being here.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out Calendly.com/Rio760.